Congressman Anthony Brindisi standing by on the line right now. Good morning, Congressman. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill, Jeff, Andrew. How you guys doing?
Well, listen, we're making our way through all of this. I got to tell you, the weather has changed my outlook anyway. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling far more optimistic when I'm looking at sunshine and 80 degrees.
It's a nice thing to see the week ahead when you see temperatures in the 80s. That's a nice thing to have after we had snow a couple weeks ago.
I know. Think about that. Just a few weeks ago. All right. So why are you letting rapists and murderers out of jail? Because that was part of our conversation yesterday with the NRCC, saying that this bill, this huge bill that you voted for, would let rapists and murderers out of jail. Now, I know you're chuckling a bit in the background, but I have to ask, usually with these, and this is done, Democrats against Republicans and Republicans against Democrats, so let's be fair. But usually what happens is that there's an ounce of truth there or a very unique situation, and then that's taken and magnified and turned into you're letting rapists and murderers out of jail. So which is it? What's happening?
Well, the truth is, this pandemic has hit New York the hardest, and the HEROES Act, I know, is far from perfect, but it includes millions of dollars for our frontline heroes, our state and local governments, more aid to rural hospitals and small businesses, and that's why I voted for it. I think in the entire time I've been in the state legislature or now in Congress, I've never voted for a bill that's perfect. And you have to look at everything when you decide, yes, I want to vote for this, or no, I'm not going to vote for it. And when you couple everything together, the bill has so much good in there, $75 billion for more testing and contact tracing, hazard pay for our essential workers who have been risking their lives, about $1 trillion, which is allocated towards state and local communities. Of that, $100 billion would come to New York, not to help with prior budget problems. They can't use money to fix a prior budget problem. It's for COVID-related expenses or loss of revenue. It's $100 million that would have come into Oneida County, $33 million for Herkimer County, the city of Utica, which is, as you see in the paper this morning, looking at layoffs and furloughs. Every one of our municipalities is facing this budget crunch because of the loss of sales tax revenue. And it's going to result in laying off cops and firefighters and teachers and nurses, and we can't let that happen. This bill will help correct that. It also provides more help for our farmers. It makes sure that veterans can get treatment at any facility, whether it's VA or non-VA facility. It makes sure cable companies can't raise their prices. So there's a lot of good in there. There's a lot of things I don't agree with, and I'm going to work hard when we compromise with the Senate to make sure the things I don't think should be in there get out of there and
what are some of those
on a bill.
What are some of those things? And could you address the charge that you're voting to allow murderers and rapists out of jail?
No one's going to let murderers and rapists out of jail. There are things in there that you can make arguments are not related to COVID. There's funding for the Postal Service, which I think is something that is necessary. You can make the argument this is not related to COVID. There's pension reform in there. People can make the argument it's not related to COVID, but I think it's something that's necessary to, funding to not penalize banks who conduct transactions with cannabis companies in states that have legalized cannabis. Those kinds of things. But overall, we're in a tough spot here in New York, and we have to get some aid into our local governments and to our state. Otherwise, we're going to see what Utica is doing right now, looking at these devastating cutbacks that are going to affect public safety and education and health care across our state.
Somebody asking, how would you be sure that that people would be able to keep their jobs if this money comes in to help companies and municipalities? And if the money is given to those towns, how do you police that?
Well, I don't know if there's a 100% fail-safe way that you can police that. Obviously, if a state is facing a $14.5 billion budget deficit because of COVID expenses and loss of revenue, and you were able to plug that, they should not be laying off any workers. Same thing with localities. Whatever their deficits are, if we're able to help make up that loss, I don't think they want to cut back on police and fire and other essential services. We're already at very, most of our municipalities don't have a lot of fat to cut off already, so it's not like they're flush with all of this.
Yeah.
And then the other part that we have to keep in mind as we move into the fall and schools start to try and look to reopen, many of our schools are facing, they're looking at 20% cuts right now because of the loss of funding at the state level. How are we going to send kids back to school in the fall and try and practice social distancing or busing or other things, make schools do more sanitizing in the classrooms if they don't have the funding to do this kind of stuff? Mental health challenges are on the rise right now. Many kids who live in poor, rural, and urban areas, the only mental health services they get is when they go to the school. That's one of the first things schools have to cut back on, are social workers and school psychologists. We don't want that to happen, and that's why you're seeing now the Senate is saying, yes, we have to do another package, where at first they said dead on arrival. Now many senators are starting to change their tune and saying, look, we have to do more to fight the public health crisis, and we have to do more to help the economy. And that's why I think we're going to get some kind of a deal done.
Andrew, you had a story you had maybe today or yesterday about veterans, New York State and veterans.
Yes, the new survey from Wallet Hub said that 4 veterans, military retirees specifically, that New York State ranks the second worst out of all 50 states.
How does that happen, and what can be done to fix that?
I haven't seen the survey. I'm not sure what the criteria is for ranking that, but as a member of the Veterans Affairs Committee, my number one priority on that committee is making sure all of our veterans have access to health care, access to housing, for our returning veterans, make sure that they have access to jobs or training to get them into the workforce. This bill protects service members and veterans who are affected by this crisis by making sure that the VA covers all COVID treatment for our veterans, even if they have to go to a non-VA facility, and it expands assistance for homeless veterans. So there's more we have to do at the federal level. I'm not sure what state policies are looking at there, but that's something the state of New York has to look at, is how do you make the state more welcoming and accommodating to our veterans.
Ann, I'll go to Ann. If anybody has a question, 315-736-0186. I'll go to Ann in Rome with a question for Congressman Brindisi. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
Yep.
Congressman, I'm a little confused with the way these bills get passed as a package and why no one can do anything to break it up. My problem is, in the state of West Virginia alone, they have the worst health, worst education, worst employment. 1 in 5 kids has food, the other 4 don't. And yet we're feeding illegals. Call them what you want. When you break the law, it's illegal. As far as letting all these prisoners out, it's already been proven they've been letting them out. And one who was in jail for armed robbery committed murder. We have a prison in Rome that's empty. If they're sick, set it up as a hospital and put them there. I don't think it's fair to any of us who abide by the laws to have to worry about someone coming and breaking in my house. Well, he robbed something, now he's going to kill me. And I think that if you're going to feed people, feed the people of this country first, not people that broke the law, because I don't think any one of us would take food from our children and give it to somebody else.
Okay. Congressman?
Well, I think her point, these bills do get all wrapped together, and I don't like that either. I think that we should look at how we can separate those out and vote. I've actually been pushing for us to break up this bill here, and let's vote on each portion individually. I think the biggest part where there's bipartisan compromise is the funding for our state and for local communities. Without this funding, many states like New York are going to be forced to make cuts to essential services like the schools, like police, like fire and hospitals. I think that would be a travesty, especially since these first responders, these frontline heroes are the ones that have been getting us through the pandemic this whole time. We can't have them turn around and then lay these folks off because hospitals can't meet budgets or school districts can't meet budgets, things like that. And again, I'll stress, this money can't be used for New York's prior budget problems. It can only be used for COVID-related expenses or loss of revenue as a result of coronavirus.
All right.
Well, what about the Kennedy Center, the millions that were given to them? We have people starving, and we're worried about a building.
Yeah, you're right. Look, I am against that. I've actually signed on to a letter to say that they should give that money back. The initial funding, I think, for that was supposed to be used to fix the Kennedy grave site, and then the director turned around and used that for operating expenses. That should never happen, and they should give that money back. You know, when you're talking
by the way,
a trillion-dollar pieces of legislation, there are going to be things like that in there that I disagree with, or that some member may have inserted in there, and that's wrong. It's wrong, and that Kennedy Center should give that money back.
And that, by the way, was something the president said he agreed with, giving money to the Kennedy Center.
Push the bill through because otherwise it was going to be stalled.
Right.
That's what he said.
No, he was asked about giving money in a critical way, giving money to the Kennedy Center, and he said he felt the Kennedy Center was a great facility, a great place, and he felt that was money well spent. I watched that interview. Either way, he may not believe that it was spent properly, but initially he was for that. I'm just saying, Ann.
And I'm just saying that I heard it too, and what I heard was it was okay, and I used that money as a compromise, is more or less what he was saying.
My guess is we heard two different interviews, but either way, if the money was used inappropriately, Congressman, you agree that shouldn't have happened. You think they should give the money back?
Be able to pick and choose things to move things through that actually need to get done instead of putting money where it doesn't need to be spent.
Okay.
But anyway, thank you.
I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to let Congressman respond to that.
No, I agree with Ann 100%. You know, unfortunately, the way you can amend bills and members can amend bills to insert things into packages, it makes it difficult, and you're left with a choice: do I vote against the whole package because I don't like 10% of it or 15% of it, or do I look at the whole thing and say this is good for the country, good for the state, good for our district, and vote on it that way? I felt with this particular bill, there's a lot of things I disagree with it in there, but overall, I think many of the things that I had mentioned are things that we really need to see. And you have folks that are showing up for work every day, putting their lives on the line during this crisis to keep us safe, to keep us healthy. I think that there should be some hazard pay for those heroes that have been really going there every day to get us through this pandemic. Same thing with support for farmers. In this bill, there's more aid for our farmers. Upstate dairy farmers are suffering right now, and this bill would provide $16 billion more in direct payments to farmers to cover their losses and to compensate them for milk dumping. That's an important thing right now that we need to help our farmers with. And
I don't want to get on the wrong side of Ann. Ann, I would never argue with you. However, the interview I saw was a press conference, and the president stated that there was criticism from a reporter of giving money to the Kennedy Center, and the president said, "I like the Kennedy Center. I think that's money well spent." Manaski.
This is going back a little bit. President Trump on Wednesday, this wasn't this past Wednesday, this was end of March, on Wednesday defended the inclusion of $25 million in funding for the Kennedy Center as part of the massive economic relief bill aimed at boosting small businesses, yada, yada, yada. Trump fashioned himself a supporter of the arts, arguing that the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts is deserving of the assistance given its inability to put on shows as officials ban large gatherings. I'm a fan of that, Trump said of the funding. I haven't spent time there because I'm far too busy. I'd love to go there evenings, but I'm too busy. The Kennedy Center, they do a beautiful job, an incredible job.
That is the interview. That's not a compromise. And no one's being critical. The money was spent improperly. But let's call it what it is. The president was for that, and it's clear right there. I saw that interview. Sandy in Frankfurt. Sorry, Ann. I do not want to argue with you. Nor does the congressman.
Come back?
No.
Okay.
I can see her yelling at the radio right now or the TV. Sandy in Frankfurt, you're on with Congressman Brindisi.
Good morning.
Hi, go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just turn your radio down if you could in the background of your TV. Got to turn that down, otherwise it gets all crazy with the delay. Hello, Sandy. You're on with the congressman.
Taking my call.
Yes, thank you.
And I see, with this new package, everything that is in it. But we are a small business still waiting to hear about our EIDL loan. which we submitted almost 2 months ago for the application. There is no way to check on it.
Sandy,
what do I do?
If you call my office, Sandy, and call my Utica office. You can go right online, brindisi.house.gov. Give us a call, and we can reach out to the Small Business Administration to find out what's going on with the EIDL loan that you applied for.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you very much.
And Sandy, I got to tell you, I am in the same boat as a small business owner, and Wednesday made that call and got a call back from the congressman's office. So make that call and at least maybe get the ball rolling, because there are a lot of businesses out there that have not gotten any correspondence, right, Sandy?
No, nothing.
Yeah,
just a confirmation number. That's it.
I have a paper that has my little confirmation number, and that's it. All right, good luck, Sandy. Call the office, okay?
Thank you very much.
Call our office, Sandy, and that's the other part about this too. Another reason why I supported this legislation is because it looks at the PPP loans, which right now don't provide a lot of flexibility for businesses in terms of paying it back. This extends the time period to the end of this year for them to be able to cover the covered period. Right now it's 8 weeks. This will expand it out to the end of the year, and it removes some of the requirements where you have to spend this much on staff and payroll, this much on your expenses. It gives much more flexibility to businesses, which is something I've been hearing every day from businesses that are looking for more flexibility with the PPP loans.
If you don't make a lot of money and you have been laid off, you are probably making more money on unemployment right now than you were making going to work. How do we put a program together that incentivizes people to get back to work? Because a lot of these businesses are going to struggle luring employees back.
Right. And that's something I think we have to look at in this next compromise package that we have, is how do we incentivize workers? I'll say this. Unemployment, the federal unemployment is temporary. It goes through July.
Yeah.
And if folks are being offered the opportunity to go back to work, and they're not taking that position because they prefer getting more on unemployment, then technically they're violating the rules of the program and could get in trouble for that. So I would encourage folks to go back to work. You're also not getting your health benefits if you're on unemployment,
right.
Whereas if you're working, you are getting, in many cases, your health benefits. But we have to look at how do we incentivize workers to get back to work. We have to realize, too, that there's a lot of people who can't go back to work right now because their job is gone. It's been eliminated. The business is shut down. And we want to be sensitive that while some may be out of work and getting more money right now and choosing not to go back to work, there are much more who are out of work and don't have the opportunity to go back to a job right now, and we have to be sensitive to that as well.
That's fair, and I do think we oftentimes focus on those that might be taking advantage of the system, and by correcting that, the people who are really in need end up getting screwed. So
I was
we got to be careful.
Follow up on the point
exactly.
that
our unemployment rate now is approaching Great Depression levels. So while there are some folks who may have jobs to go back to, by and large, many folks do not have a job to go back to just yet because their business is not opened, or maybe it's closed permanently. And we want to make sure that those folks are able to care for themselves and to feed their families. I was down in Norwich yesterday at a food drive. Chobani and SUNY Morrisville and NBT Bank and others put together this Nourish New York food drive to hand out New York dairy products to help our farmers and things like that. And the whole fairgrounds there was just jammed with cars. Not everyone was able to get served because there is just so much need out there right now. If you don't have a paycheck coming in, you got to buy food for your family, and many people are suffering right now. We have to acknowledge that.
That's a sight that I never thought we would see around here, anyway.
Hundreds of cars at the Shenango County Fairgrounds. It was quite a sight to see, and not everyone was able to get food, but many people did benefit from that yesterday.
Somebody here saying millions given to MVHS, yet people are still laid off and furloughed.
Yeah, look, the money that's gone to hospitals, there needs to be more funding to go to hospitals. MVHS is in a unique position because they're not really in a rural area, and it's not in a hot spot, and a lot of the funding for hospitals has been geared towards those areas. I want to see, MVHS bring workers back as needed. Those should not be permanent layoffs or furloughs. But again, many hospitals are facing, because they've had no non-urgent surgeries for the last couple months. They've all are facing very significant shortfalls, and that's leading to more stress on their budgets. But as things start to stabilize here, and they bring back more of the non-urgent surgeries, I think they should bring back those folks that they laid off.
Okay.
I was just going to make the point earlier, and the Congressman made it. There's a provision in there that if your employer was trying to hire you back, you can't say, no thanks, I'll just take unemployment. You lose the benefit.
Right. Which is unemployment in general, right? That's the rule.
At least I hope so.
That's the rules of unemployment to begin with.
That's the rules. Yep. And look, that's a very difficult conversation. I understand that it's a very difficult conversation for an employer to have, and no employer wants to turn in someone to unemployment. But the fact is that if you are being offered the opportunity to go back to work, you cannot say, I would rather just make the extra $600 on the federal unemployment. That's in violation of the program, and you can get in trouble.
I don't want to mention the exact facility, but I spoke with somebody 2 days ago that said they were being called back and didn't want to go because they feel that the facility is not reinforcing the social distancing. They're not providing masks. He feels his health, his immune system is compromised, and feels that he's putting himself in jeopardy by going back. What do you say to somebody like that?
Well, there are CDC guidelines in place. There are Department of Labor guidelines. Businesses are supposed to be following that. If they're not, they can get in trouble as well for not following those kinds of guidelines, and can be reported to the Department of Labor.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Sandy in Utica. Good morning, Sandy. You're on with Congressman Brindisi.
I'm just curious as to why when someone calls your office that nobody answers. You have to talk to a machine. And that the machine even wants you to leave your Social Security number on it, which is ridiculous.
No, our answering machine does not ask for a Social Security number. I can tell you that our physical offices are closed right now. No one is in the actual offices, so all of our staff is working remotely. And we've been getting about anywhere between 300-400 calls into the office a day, so occasionally the voicemail will pick up. But we ask people, please leave a message, and we will get back to you to answer your questions. But we would never ask for your Social Security. That is not on our voicemail, asking for Social Security numbers. I
left 4 messages before anyone got back to me, as well as every time I got recording, every time.
Okay. Did someone get back to you?
Eventually, yes.
All right. Okay. If there's more that we can do to help, please let me know, and I'll make sure that my staff contacts you about that.
All right, Sandy, but don't go leaving your Social Security number on an answering machine, no matter.
No, I don't.
Okay.
But I don't like to have to talk to a machine in order to.
I understand. I completely understand that, Sandy, and I apologize for that. Yep. It's just we are not allowed to be in the offices physically right now to answer the phones. So the staff has to be able to work remotely and are answering through the cell phones, which the calls get forwarded to the cell phones. And sometimes if the lines are all busy, you will get a voicemail. So I apologize for that. We're trying to do the best we can to help everybody.
I'm not trying to defend you, although I'll be criticized for that. But I do think that we have to, as people today, accept a little bit of inconvenience in the midst of this. It's not just at your office, but it's at stores and it's at businesses. There's just it's a different world. Try calling. I was trying to call the IRS the other day, and it's almost impossible to get through right now. This is we're still in a very unique situation right now.
It is, and I understand. There's folks that have every right to be frustrated. You know, if you don't have a paycheck coming in, you've been laid off, if your business has been shut down, if you're waiting for your stimulus check, it's frustrating. I understand that, and that's why we're trying to do the best we can to answer people's calls, get them answers to their SBA loans, where their stimulus check is. Even though unemployment is handled by the state officials and at the state level, we're still taking those calls, and we're weighing in every day, sending messages to DOL saying what's going on with these unemployment checks. So it's very frustrating when you don't have the ability to care for yourself or provide for your family. So we'll take the frustration. That's my job, and I accept that. And we're going to try and do the best we can to get back to everybody.
All right, Congressman, you have good weather for the weekend. It looks like we have a weather we're not used to this weekend. And boy, it couldn't happen at a better time.
Well, I hope you guys have a safe Memorial Day, and let's not forget the reason of this whole weekend. It's because of our fallen service members. So let's make sure we take some time to remember them as well.
All right, Congressman, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Take care.
Congressman Anthony Brindisi. Coming up, Leon Etienne is on national TV tonight. Did you know that? And we'll get to Leon next to WIBX.